In chapter 9, Shri Bhagwan begins with a kind of admiration of Arjun, saying that, yes, Arjun, you qualify to listen to this great truth. What does he say? Idam tute guhyatamam pravakshamya anasuyave. You are not a person who cavils, who is not dismissive or scornful or disdainful of the great knowledge, and therefore, Arjun, you qualify. What does this mean? This means that all those people who we know very well around us, who are slightly skeptical and scornful or disdainful of the great knowledge, not because they have read it and they are disdainful, because they have not been exposed to it. It's easy for them to cavil. And Bhagwan says, Arjun, although you don't know this great knowledge which I am revealing to you by and by, you are still you still qualify, because you are anasuyave. It's a kind of admiration of young Arjun and a kind of encouragement for him to listen with all the more Shraddha. And later, Bhagwan says, what is this great knowledge I'm going to reveal to you? So the great secret knowledge. Now the secret word guhya may be translated literally as secret, but actually it would mean the profoundest knowledge, very profound, or it may mean it's hidden. It's hidden from the common view, because the common view is all too extroverted and outward looking, bahirmukhi. And therefore it is hidden from something that's so very obvious and yet hidden. It's guhya. For example, you may be looking out from your 20th story flat, out at the scene below, but you're looking out through the glass window. And do you notice the glass in between? No. We look at the world through the glass window, but we know the glass is there only when informed about it, or it's there at the back of the mind, but it's not as if we are looking at the glass. It's not as if we are aware of the glass. It is as if we see it and yet miss it. So it's the same with consciousness. We know it because it's that which is powerfully dynamizing us at every moment. Otherwise, without that, you can't be doing all the great things and all the skills that we have and all the capacities that we all have. So we see it and we miss it. We see it and we miss it. It's like looking at the world through the glass window, and that glass is constantly there no matter what you observe in the world outside. So that's why perhaps it is said, yes, I'm there, I'm everywhere, and I'm so obvious, Al-Zahir, they say in Sufi Islam. I am Al-Zahir, I'm everywhere, and yet, how do you miss it? How do you miss something that's everywhere? It's the same as knowing that, of course, you're breathing. Without that, we can't exist. I know I'm breathing, but I'm not aware of my breath until the yoga teacher says, okay, take a deep breath and exhale. And then I'm aware of it. Otherwise, I'm not. I know I'm breathing, and I'm breathing every single moment in deep sleep and in dream and in waking. I cannot get rid of my breath. Otherwise, the body won't exist. And yet, something that is constantly with me, that awareness of it is not with me. Therefore, you can say it's hidden. You might say it's the hidden thing. Bhagwan is only revealing something that is very zahir, which is very obvious and around us. And yet we need a master like Krishna to reveal it to us. So, therefore, in the 4th verse, Krishna reminds us and says and tells Arjun, Matsthani sarva bhutani nachaham teshavasthitaha. The great truth is that all the beings exist in me, and the paradox is that I do not dwell in them. That's why sometimes when you hear a paradoxical statement, that can also be termed as a hidden truth, something that's a paradox. So he says, all beings exist in me and I do not dwell in them. How does that happen? That sounds strange. So he explains with a beautiful example, and even Krishna knows that examples are needed for the gross mind like Arjuna and ours, the very gross mind dwelling in the world. So he gives an example in verse 6 of chapter 9. यथाकाशस्थितो नित्यं वायु सर्वत्र गो महान् तथा सर्वाणि भूतानि मत्स्थानित्युपधारय. Like the mighty wind, you see the mighty wind is moving everywhere. But where does that wind exist? Where does it rest? It is existing and resting only in mighty space. If the space was not mighty, it would be impossible for the wind to function, to move. It's that space that is required, and therefore it can be said that the storms or the breezes or the gentle breeze of the sea, everything moves in space. Now, what is the meaning of the last phrase? Matsthanithyupadharaya. But all beings rest in me. And in the 7th verse, in fact, he says, 7th verse, that Sarvabhutani Kaunteya Prakritim Yanti Mamityah. Okay. How is it that the wind can exist in space? Simply because everything that is gross or sthula or inert or jada. So sthul is the word which is non-sentient, let's say. All that which is sthul can exist in the subtle, isn't it? Just like my body can be locked up in a room, but my mind cannot be locked up in a room. It's free to go anywhere it pleases because it's subtle. So the gross can be held within the subtle, in the space. And the wind can swirl and whirl in space, but what happens to the space? So if there is an angry wind which is blowing like a sandstorm through the desert of Dubai, how is that space affected there? What about the space here in Bombay, which is heavy with moisture and thick and balmy and heavy? No. What about the space here? No difference. No difference. There is a difference in the wind which is blowing through these different, you can call them different spaces because of the geographical reference, but otherwise the space is the same. Here on earth and beyond the earth and in our galaxy and beyond the galaxies. So I, Krishna, am actually the cosmic truth. So that same space which is in the cosmos, in all the galaxies and through the galaxies and in between the galaxies, it's the same space that is there in my room, outside my window, and in the street, and in Dubai, and in US. How can space be different? Everything that you see in the whole existing world of beings exists in me simply, and therefore what you do on this earth and what happens to these beings is not affecting that space, and therefore that unaffectedness, that untouchedness of not being touched by anything in the world is the nature of Brahman. Now, space, well, where will it move? Space does not move. Where will it move? It can move only when there is some space somewhere else. So, for example, I can move the water from this swimming pool outside of the swimming pool because outside there's no water. So, I can move it from where it is to where it is not. How can I move space? Because there is no place in the world where space is not. So I cannot move it. It's unmoving, untouched. And therefore, in Vedantic literature, very often, when you go into Vedantic literature at some point, you will find that the word Chidabhas, Chidakash, has been used for the consciousness. It comes from two words, Chit, consciousness, and Akash, space. Space as we know it. So that consciousness and space is the same, Chit, Akash, and joined together as Chidakash. So this Chidakash consciousness is our reality. Of course, the world is made up of two things we know, Prakriti and consciousness. And what are their different natures? Again, a quick revision. So the Prakriti is of course made up of Panchatattva, air, water, fire, etc. And it is, what about us human beings? So apart from this Panchatattva, we have this additional mischief makers called the Man and the Buddhi, and then the worst mischief maker, the devilish Asuri, Rakshasi. These words are coming up in the next few verses, so I take the liberty to use the words Asuri, Rakshasi, Aham. Everything that I think I am, this form and this body and this existence, I attach an Aham to it, that I am this or I am that. That is called Aham. And that turns into Ahankar very easily. That is vanity or arrogance. But that is all. What is the nature of this bundle? This whole bundle of Panchatattva, BMI, Prakriti, is unreal because it's moving and it's changing. Can it condition the Akash? Can the wind condition the space in which it is blowing? Not at all. It cannot condition it. Whether it is moist or dry or sandy or dusty, the wind is free to be what it is. But it cannot condition the space. And yet the space holds it. The space holds it because that is the Adhar. That is the very foundation in which everything exists. What is the nature in contrast to consciousness? Of course we know the opposite. Totally untouched and real. Opposite of unreal, and it supports everything. Changing? No, unchanging. So you know the two aspects of Prakriti and consciousness, Purush. So what is the good of knowing this? What is the good of knowing this in the way I lead my life every day, and I still have to go about getting my car repaired and my insurance fixed, and I still have to make sure that my children get the highest and the best education in the Ivy League universities. So there's my struggle for visas. My struggle goes on in this world. How does this great knowledge change my life? No, it doesn't change your life. It changes the way we can perceive life. So once we realize that space is unaffected, no matter how much you grieve or rejoice, that space is unaffected, and if you identify with that, you will say to yourself at some point where your visa is stuck or your finances have been devastated or whatever ills we suffer, or even the great or the great honor and accolades which are showered on us, they are all momentary. The only thing to remember is this wind which is blowing across will pass. This storm, the sandstorm, will pass. It has to pass. In Dubai, it's not as if throughout the year you have this constant state of it's not as if you have this constant state of 1 full year of sandstorm. That's ridiculous. It's a passing season. It's a passing phenomena. It's a passing natural, not a season, it's a weather condition. And even seasons are passing. Weather conditions are even more fleeting and momentary. And in that, if we add all the things that go on in our own lives, they are no different from the physical phenomena around us. The storm and the wind and the rain and the passing seasons, the physical phenomena are only reflecting how what's going on in our own minds. In fact, in our own minds and in our lives, it's even more fleeting. The joys, the sorrows, they're just temporary passing phenomena. The moment we look at it in this fashion, then we allow the sandstorm to pass. We just put our heads down, cover our heads with a nice shawl, and we know. Ask that camel, yes. You can ask the camel as well as the camel riders in the desert. What do they all do? The camel, and of course the camel is equipped to handle the sandstorm, but those of us who are not, just hide behind the camel, sit there and wait for the storm to pass. There is no life in this world, there is no human in this world who has not seen storms, emotional storms of devastated, broken relationships and disappointments and frustrations. Most of them are either financial or relationship related or career related, and therefore there is no human life where these storms have not come, but they have come and gone. They have blown over. That's the time we need to put our heads down and say, oh, okay, I know this sandstorm is going to blow over. That is its nature. That's the nature of sansar. That's the nature of Jagat. That's the nature of the sandstorm. Once I understand its nature, I'm not going to protest and wail and weep and grieve and go into dejection, as Arjun had done. Yes, so that's the only difference that will happen. So having said that, Chit Akash, of course, one of my favorite words, because it stands for Chit, consciousness, plus Akash. That Chit Akash is actually such a revered thing. And in Chidambaram, I am told that there is the one and only temple in the world which is dedicated to Akash, space, just space. And I haven't visited it, of course, but that kind of temple, just as other temples are reminders to us of the Almighty presence, this temple is a reminder to us of the subtlety of that presence, the subtlety which is closest to God. So, so if any of you visit it, it will be great to know what it's like. Dedicated to space, yes. And how long will this so-called passing, fleeting sansar last? Okay, so what for us is a passing year? Okay, so this year perhaps I had a fantastic year and the career was top and there were honors and accolades. Okay, next year maybe it is a different story. And the next year maybe it is a complete dejection, and then that year too shall pass. We have to remember that year will also pass. And therefore, what is 1 year to us, what is it to Bhagwan? So, how long does it take for these changes to take place? This coming and going, that we have seen earlier, but Bhagwan reminds us again in the 7th verse of the 9th chapter. Sarva bhutani kaunteya prakritim yanti mamikam kalpakshe punastani kalpadao visrajamyaham. All beings go into Prakriti, hey Kaunteya, hey Arjun, they all go into Prakriti at the end of a kalpa, at the end of one kalpa. And then after that one kalpa, I send them forth again. Pralay and Prabhav, I send them forth again at the beginning of another, of the next kalpa. What is this kalpa? We've seen it before. It is the 4 yugas. All the 4 yugas that we talked about, Chatur Yuga, each of one of them with a differing time span, but all together amounting to approximately 43,000 lakh years. 43,000 lakh years, yes. Multiply that by 1,000, some calculation made by the rishis, one fine day the scientists, if they haven't already, the scientists will come upon the same figure. So in terms of human years, and why do we say human years? Because we are humans inhabiting this particular planet. And why do we use a measure referring to this planet? Because we know how long the earth, this particular small little rock called the earth, is taking a particular amount of time to go around the sun. So calculated by that revolution of the sun, we have calculated our 1 year. It doesn't mean that our calculation is a universal calculation for all the planets. No, of course not. They take a different time span to revolve around the sun. What about different galaxies? Now there are thousands of galaxies and thousands of suns, and ours is only the Milky Way. Now, if there are hundreds and thousands of Milky Ways, each of them will have their own planetary system, and each of these planets may or may not have life. And suppose they have life, they will have a different calculation according to the cosmic movement of their particular year. So we are talking only of, see the reference point is only to us small little creatures on one small planet in one small galaxy called the Milky Way, and that is 1 year. What is 1 year for us? So calculated accordingly, the Chatur Yuga, that is 43,000 lakh years into 1,000 is the Chatur Yuga, all 4 yugas put together. Bhagwan says this is one kalpa. The word used in the second line of 7th verse is kalpakshe punastani, end of the kalpa, I will will it that the life will rise again. After that I go after the next kalpa, I dissolve, go back into what? Into non-duality. There is no duality ki ye vastu hai aur ye consciousness hai. There will be only one, that is singularity. Only one singularity. And no, That means what? That means everything will be there, but not manifest, not visible. Why do we say unmanifest? Because in the seed, the example given very often, in the seed of a tree is unmanifest the entire future tree, and all its millions of fruits and flowers and seeds are in the future, but in that seed is the potential for it. So what we dissolve into is the unmanifest seed form, which means what? Which means that the life form as we know it now is going to have all the potential, invisible, hidden potential to spring forth into a life form after the 43,000 lakh years into 1,000 years. Punastani kalpakshay. Then I will rise again and I'll become manifest again. Yeah, okay. But you know what is the surprising thing? Once Swamiji had mentioned this and it really blew my mind. He said that look, when you have a dream, and this sansara is just like a one cosmic dream of Bhagwan, isn't it? So the waking is what we are now, that the whole world is alive and dynamic and working and thinking and grieving and falling and rising, whatever, all the things that we do, which Bhagwan finds ridiculous, is the dynamic form of life. Okay, that's the waking time of Bhagwan, Brahma. And what about the sleeping time? That is the pralaya. So that will dissolve. Now, once you go into a dream state, when Swamiji said, you have a certain dream, okay? So you have this dream that you're on a beautiful beach and you've met a long dead relative whom you're missing very much, and that relative comes along, could be a parent or a grandparent, and you have a nice conversation and you're feeling so nice about meeting some old relative, and then you wake up and the dream is gone. Okay, so that's like Brahma waking up and the sansar is gone. So pralay. When we wake up and we say, oh, that dream was so beautiful, I want to get into that dream again. Tell me, when we go fall asleep again, can we ever dream the same dream again? It's not possible. By nature, it's not possible. It's not ordained like that. Therefore, once this whole, in one kalpa, the sansar goes into pralaya, destruction, and when it rises again after one whole kalpa, it will sleep also one whole kalpa, that is 43,000 lakh years into 1,000, it will sleep. The Brahma will sleep, which means it will be in dissolution state. Okay, so that's the state in the night. When he wakes up, do you think that Brahma can dream the same dream again? That the earth forms will be exactly the same. Humans, they're calling them humans, they could be anything else. Humans will look like us, they will think like us, feel like us, emote like us, have the same kind of contentious relationships, the same kind of struggles and afflictions of the mind and emotion, the same kind of subconscious which keeps dominating their life, and yet they don't know that subconscious is dominating them. No. They can. How can Brahma dream the same dream? So you know what? So the idea, the logic is that after this kalpa of being in dissolution, pralaya, when the world comes up again, how do you know the laws will be the same? The laws of karma, the laws of physics, the laws of gravity, the laws of electricity, the laws of light, all the laws of physics that we know today about this earth, the laws of seasons and the seeds and the plants. And what about telepathy? Maybe there'll be new kind of creatures. We don't know the names, we just call ourselves human. Let's say evolved and unevolved creatures. Okay, so the highest evolved creature, how do you know that creature will survive only on carbon, oxygen and calcium? I mean the building blocks of life. Maybe there'll be other chemicals. The chemicals that we don't know anything about on this particular planet right now. So in terms of Brahma's time, we are not even real. The same dream will never come up again. The same chemicals, that same calcium and iron and vitamins that we keep popping to keep our bodies nice and dynamic and happy and cheerful, the same chemicals may not even be found in the new lok, Brahma lok, in the new lok of the sansar. What about telepathy? We don't know what new laws will operate. Maybe the creatures, evolved creatures of that time, will be able to read each other's minds as we read our message boxes on WhatsApp so easily. So telepathy may be a natural thing. How do you know what will be natural? Maybe they will use a different form of locomotion. We walk on 2 feet and we are grounded because of gravity. Maybe gravity will function differently and our locomotion. Why our? We won't be there. That creature's locomotion or movement will be in a different form. Maybe gravity will be moving in a different... You already know that on the moon, the astronauts walk in a different way because they take this big leap, This one step is a huge leap because gravity is much less. Anyway, so it's just a mind-blowing example to say that the form in which we exist today, the laws of physics that we know today, the laws of karma which are incontrovertible, may not even operate. Which means how unreal are we? How unreal is this sansar? How mayavi and how mithya is this particular sansar, which is like a mirage, like a dream of Brahma. Dreamt now, gone later. And in Brahma's time, it's only, I think, yes, I slept for a day and I woke up. And I woke up and was awake for a day. For him, it's just like one day. And for us, it's a complete change in our entire existence and what we think is our entity. The word hour also is strange to use in this context of huge cosmic time, because there will be no such thing as hour, because there is no aham. If the dream doesn't come again, for Brahma that is, then where is the aham? The aham is attached to what? To nothing. This aham, that is I am, and this is my car, and this is my achievement, and this is my family, is the aham of this little creature that is the human. And we say, oh, we are the most evolved. Yes, we may be the most evolved in this particular planet, this rock called Earth. But not in the whole cosmic sense. How do you know we are the most evolved? We have heard of unidentified flying objects, UFOs. Maybe they come, they're still being investigated. Maybe they come from many galaxies far away, and therefore they have evolved conscious beings on other planets who are far more intelligent, and they can even bring their flying objects or their flying tashtari, or what are they called? In their flying saucers. Maybe they come down to our planet to investigate who are these creatures so primitive. They laugh and they grieve and they fall and they rise and they are full of aham, and they feel honor and dishonor. Who are these unelevated and unevolved creatures? Maybe they come to look at to do some kind of scientific study on us poor little creatures on this planet. How do you know that more evolved creatures do not exist in this vast cosmos? This is the thought which actually expands the mind of the scientist who goes out there and says, I want to find out. So Stephen Hawking, and if you read him, he says that time and space have collapsed at one point. And of course in Pralay it does collapse. This was one of his theories also. That Stephen Hawking of England, that when the world goes into Pralay, which is called Kalpa over here, Pralay is not called Kalpa, the time span after which it goes into Pralay, one Kalpa, he said that is when the world will collapse into a black hole, and time and space as we know it will be two dimensions which will not exist. For us, all the experiences take place because we are aware of two dimensions only, time and space. If there was no time and no space, as it is in Pralay, would there be any experience? No. So when there is no time, there is no experience. So if you don't believe this, then look at the logic of deep sleep. In deep sleep, what is our experience? Am I in my deep sleep? Not dream. In my deep sleep, am I experiencing my honor that I received today, or some discomfort that I had, or the car crash that I was in, or that the financial pinch that I'm feeling, or that desire of that shop window I wanted to buy some? Where are all these experiences? These experiences do not exist in our deep sleep. Does any other experience exist in deep sleep? Not at all. Neither this nor that. There is no experience. Why? Because there is no experience of time. Time has collapsed. So do you know where you are sleeping in terms of space? Am I in an aeroplane? Yeah, in my dream I may be, but in deep sleep, am I in an aeroplane? Am I in a guest house? Am I in my own home, in my own bed? In that space, where is that experience? I don't know. I have no experience of space nor time. Therefore, because there is no time and space, I have no experience. So I feel refreshed and say, where was my dukkha which I felt before I fell asleep? I was feeling really dukhi. Because aham dukhi, you see. And when something nice happens to me, then aham sukhi. So my entire waking world is only a toss between these two. Aham sukhi, aham dukhi. That's all. Yeah, it seems like a very poor kind of existence. Aham sukhi, aham dukhi, there's nothing else. No, nothing more elevating, nothing more cosmic, nothing more evolved, nothing more divine than that in our lives. Just aham sukhi, aham dukhi. Everything attached to this small little petty, ephemeral aham. So, in deep sleep, there is no time, no space, and therefore I am not aware of my dukkha. I am not aware of my sukha. Maybe I have had the best wedding in the world and a big bash, and the guests have been completely elated about the biggest wedding in the world, and it's a talk of the town, and the media is all over it. But in my deep sleep, I don't know about it. Even that sukha is gone. The sukha is gone, dukkha is also gone. So therefore, who am I in my deep sleep? Who am I? Then without the time, without the space, without the experience of sukha dukkha, I still am. And that is my pure self. The pure self. And therefore that pure self is unaffected by the winds that blow over it, the prakriti, all the sthula things. What is my true nature? Same as Bhagwan's Anushasitaram, governing all the laws. Anoraniyasam, subtler than the atom. Subtlest. It's the subtlest form we can exist in our deep sleep, and without experience. Sarvasya dhataram. I am the nourisher of all. Sarvasya dhataram means I am, it is in that consciousness that everything exists. Sarvasya dhataram, that is my own state. Because on that top of that consciousness, when I wake up, my first thought will be, oh my God, what's happened to my car insurance? Suppose that was the last thought. That will pop up on what? It will pop up on the same adhar of consciousness. Therefore, who am I? I am only that pure consciousness, the adhar of all existence. Okay. So what is my relationship? My relationship meaning the form in which I know myself with all the diversity in the sansar. What is that relationship? So number 8 verse says, Prakritim swamavashtabhya visrajjame punah punah bhutagramamimam kritsnam avasham prakriter vashat. Animated by Prakriti, I rise again and again. I send forth into the multitude of beings, and all these beings who come into existence are actually helpless. They come forth helplessly. What does it mean, helplessly? It means that they are bound to something. You know, when the dog is on a leash and when there is a tug on the leash and he wants to rush in one direction, and that leash automatically restrains him and he has to come back. We are like on a leash. what is this leash holding us? Prakriti is making us helpless or bound and making us come back over and over and over again to do our bhog. Bhog means the experience of sukha dukha. Why? Because this Prakriti is the bundle of vasanas. Same theory that we are all too familiar with, because my Prakriti is nothing but, at the moment, what I think I am, the Prakriti part of it, not the consciousness. The Prakriti part of me is only this body, the mind, the intellect, the aham, the ahankar which is attached to it. Now what does this bundle do? This bundle experiences everything outside. So my temperament is designed around it, my attitudes, my inclinations, my belief in religion or belief in politics or in people or in what are the right values, what is high and low, all my perceptions and my desires and my emotions, my ambitions, all these are bundled into that Prakriti bundle of body, mind, intellect, aham. Okay, 8 factors, 8 components. Now, because all this is already acting, and you know that once you act in a certain way, there is a karmic principle which kicks into operation, and that karmic principle, the law of nature, it is not a capricious or what's called unpredictable law. It is judicious, and it is actually quite well balanced. It is a judicious law. It is not unpredictable that okay, किसी को कोई कर्म छू गया, किसी को कोई कर्म लग गया, ऐसा नहीं होता. हम अपने कर्म खुद बनाते हैं और लेकर चलते हैं. And therefore we have to come back. That's why Bhagavan is saying Vishrajami punah punah. Again and again you are projected out into the world. Which part? The Prakriti part. That is our stool bodies. And what about the other part of us, the changeless, the eternal, the imperishable, the platform on which everything else is playing, that Akash, that Chit Akash, Chidakash, that remains the same. No change. Not now, not after Pralaya, not at the time of the cosmic rising of the new universe. No, it cannot change. Avasam prakriter vashat, I am compelled, but it's a beautiful phrase. Prakriti vashat. Because of this Prakriti and the actions that I do, and why am I doing these actions? They are propelled by my desires. If I didn't have desires, I would have no frustration or anger or pride about it, or arrogance about it. If I didn't have any anger or pride or arrogance or frustration, I wouldn't behave in a certain way with people and environment. And if I did not behave in that way, in any particular way, I would not collect any karma sticking to me. There would be no karma. So, this Prakriti is making me come back again and again, because I think my form is only these impressions that I am forming of my desires and emotions. So, a very stark example was given by Swami Vidyaranya once. He said that in Panchadashi, he said that, when you pass by a shop window, at that time I'm not sure whether there were shop windows, but what he meant was when you pass by a place where things are being sold in a marketplace, and you look at something very longingly, oh how wonderful, and the first thought in our mind is, if I could have it, if I could be the possessor of that object. So it could be a beautiful bed cover, or the most beautiful vase, or a car, or a diamond necklace, or a piece of technology, doesn't matter. It's the quality of mind that attaches to that object to say, oh, if only I could be the possessor of this object. Okay? And then if you can't afford it, you pass on. But do you know what? Before you and me and everybody else, there were hundreds of people who stood in the same shop window or marketplace, and with the same kind of hunger and the same kind of trishna and pyas in them, pipasa, that I wish I could have this object. Can you imagine that object had the vibrations of the desires of so many minds passing through, and it collected all that. The object probably collected all that. And so this Trishna and this Pipasa it carries forward. So I may not buy it because my pocket doesn't allow me, I don't have enough money, so I may just pass it by and move on. But you know what? What stays with me? What stays with me is that thirst, that hunger, that I allowed to arise in me at that moment of temptation. And that stays with me. And therefore Bhagavan is saying Prakriti is such that it will project itself punah punaha. Again and again we are bound by it, and we will come back again and again. And that, not to forget, in and through all this drama, not to forget that vital spark in all of us is the same Advait. It is single, it is not dual, non-dual. I'm reading a line here which I scribbled once, which said, दुनिया बनाने वाले क्या तेरे मन में समाई, काहे को दुनिया बनाई. So it may be not just this dunya, actually there may be so many dunyas or sansars, as I said, in this whole cosmos, which may be witness to some life form. It may be a single cell non-sentient amoeba. It may be, amoeba is not sentient, by the way. It may be objects. It may be very, very evolved creatures. But how do you know that life form doesn't exist? This dunya ours is not the only dunya in the world. But फिर भी काहे को दुनिया बनाई is a question that troubles many philosophers, many rishis and many poets. Bani kyun? So it is, in some Upanishads it said it's just a dream. It's just a projection of Brahma's dream, like we dream. क्यों स्वप्न आप क्यों देखते हैं? कोई रीजन है? तो अगर हमसे कोई पूछे तो हम कहेंगे नहीं, अपने आप उत्पन्न होता है that स्वप्न. But it is riding where? In me, on my consciousness. मेरे से ही बना है, मेरे ऊपर ही चल रहा है. But I am not, I'm not the creator. At the same time, you are called the creator, but I am not willing it. That's what it says. So it's like Brahma's whim. We can call it whim until we find out, or some rishis find out the actual reason. काहे को दुनिया बनाई, दुनिया बनाने वाले. But having said that, we need to see how one proceeds while we are in the dunya anyway. काहे को बनाई ये तो पता नहीं, लेकिन दुनिया में तो है, अब जीना तो है. So in this world of finitude, how do we live as if we are infinite creatures? In the sense, what is that infinite in us? So number 9, न च मां तानि कर्माणि निबध्नन्ति धनञ्जय उदासीनवदासीनम् असक्तं तेषु कर्मसु. Very simple and very, very beautiful. This is the way to live. Second line, udasin asaktam. Udasin means unattached. Asaktam also means unattached. Udasin means sort of rising above everything that's happening. That is the supreme consciousness. Because in deep sleep, we don't know of people whom we hate or we love. They're all the same, and they don't even exist actually. So where is that love and hate and that dejection and elation? So just rise above it, because that is who you are. Udasin and asaktam. Udasin, asaktam, unattached, supreme consciousness. So examples again in Panchadashi, Swami Vidyaranya, beautiful example is of and you've heard this example before, of the Natya Deepam. The Natya Deepam, the focus light, or the light which is enlivening the action, the drama on the stage. That light is needed to see the drama on the stage, but without that they can't perform. But that light is not touched by what is going on the stage, and that is who we are. Because in our waking hours there's so much of elation and dejection and maybe even a lot of studies and curiosity and confusion and a feeling that, oh, I'm not evolved, I need to evolve, a feeling of inadequacy and insecurity, God knows what all goes on in this small little mind right through the day, and in deep sleep, all gone. It's the same state in which we find ourselves in samadhi, the deep meditation. The only difference is samadhi meditation, we are doing it as aware beings. We are aware that we are Chiddakash, the pure consciousness. That floodlight is unaffected. Therefore, all the drama that goes on in our waking hours, totally unaffected in our deep sleep. Just like the sun. Another example given is of the sun. The sun light, it was daytime, and we saw a certain battle being fought, and the battle was filmed, and we saw that some of the soldiers were martyred. So we saw the people being martyred over there, and we saw it how? Because the sun was up. If the sun was not up, probably in darkness we couldn't have recorded or seen it. And therefore, if the sun has seen it too, is the sun affected by it? By the crime or the murder or the glory of the martyr? No, the sun is totally neutral. And yet we need the sun to observe something. We need our consciousness to be the witness or observer of everything, of ourselves and of our every function. If there was no consciousness, even my liver wouldn't know how to process the food. So it is a witness even to the to those functions which are not conscious or aware of it. What are they called? Yeah, okay, whatever. So all these functions, including my mind, I am udasin. I meaning the consciousness, allow it to function, to perform, but I am rising above. Udasin asaktam, that's the way to live. These are the two words. I would probably underline this, the 9th verse in the 9th chapter, and keep it by as a kind of an inspiration to say, O Dhananjay, udasina vadasinaktam asaktam teshu karmasu. Do whatever you need to do, unattached to the acts, whatever actions you need to do. Karmasu is actions in this world. So you are the pure and I am the true nature. Your true nature is pure witness. Witness cannot be touched by the action. The witness of an accident, something is happening on the street over there and you're standing in the balcony and some crime takes place, you are asked to report it. The witness is not touched by it. The witness only has to report, yes, this happened. But then if we know that this is the simple truth, that you are actually the witness, distanced, separate consciousness, Sakshi of everything in the world, then why is it that some people, when they behave really badly with me, I tend to lose my temper and I am upset? They have the capacity to upset me, believe it or not. And why is it that I can't remember, why is it that other people can still upset me? Simple. Because I cannot remind myself at the time of upset, I do not remind myself of what? That those people who are acting so-called against me are also compelled by the force of their own prakriti. Prakriti meaning this bundle of vasanas which are coming down from millions of years as our actions and our thoughts. Now he is compelled or she is compelled, avashaha means almost helplessly to act the way they are acting. They are helpless, equally helpless. So would you start berating or showing down or hitting a person who is helpless already? You wouldn't do that, because that person is doing it in helplessness of their own prakriti pushing them to act in a certain way. It could be a mean way according to us if we judge them. It could be a nasty way. It could be a narrow-minded way. It could be a narrow-spirited way, because they don't have the exposure to the higher divine, and therefore Prakriti is pushing them, just like it pushes animals. So no point in getting upset. The moment we remember, oh, I am pure witness, and that person is also actually the Aadhar of his existence is also pure consciousness, but then they are acting in a way that is not conducive to me, only to me. So if I drop my aham, that their behavior is neutralized, and that action is neutralized. That's a simple way to look at it. So our ultimate essence is what? Pure awareness, independent. It is independent of good or bad opinion of others. If only we could remember this. We can remember only with repetition. Repetition is most important for us to ingrain it, internalize it in our lifestyle, to say that actually we are independent of the opinions, good or bad, of others around us. We are neither superior nor inferior to others. We are actually the same tattva. And therefore, what fear, what insecurity, what inferiority, what failure, what disease, what death can you ever fear? We come back to the same claim of Krishna, that you cannot have fear at all of anything. Once you know this truth as an experience, not as an intellectual verbalized expression, but as an experience, as your own real intuitive experience. मैं वो तत्व हूँ, I am Chidakash, I am consciousness, my ultimate essence is timeless. Timeless, yani even when the universe collapses and all the planets have collapsed into one black hole for one kalpa, for 43 lakh into 1,000 years, that kalpa is not going to affect me. I will still have the potential to spring forth into life at some point. Life form may not be the same, but it will be life. So how do I live? Simply not taking on these impermanent roles that we are playing, a teacher, an actor, a scientist, a mother, and all the relationships, and a shopkeeper, and a grahak, and I'm a customer, so you jolly well should service my car twice a year, and I lose my temper, I'm a customer. All these are impermanent roles. We are not taking them seriously. Just as an actor, if they were to take their role seriously on stage or in front of the camera, they would be a wreck, emotional wreck, because their roles are not to be taken seriously. But many of us are already emotional wrecks because we are also in our lives playing roles, but not realizing that we are on a stage playing a drama which is impermanent. Very soon after 15-20 years or 50 years, depending on our age, there's going to be curtains down, finish, the bell rings, audience jao apne ghar, curtains ho jane wala hai. So therefore, when we look around at everything that we take much pride in, and we feel a connection with our aham, ye mera hai. I have this beautiful antique piece. Nowadays, I told you, while I'm dusting these beautiful antique pieces, some of them are inherited and some are collected. The first thought that occurs to me is, okay, let me enjoy it for the next 15-20 years, because that's the amount of time it's going to be attached to my aham, me. After that, it's going to pass on. Either it will go into dust if it is delicate, or if it's metallic, it will just pass on to somebody else, a museum or a temple or a relative. It's not even mine. And if it's not mine 15 years hence, that even now, it's not actually mine. If 15 years hence it is not mine, how can it be mine now? And therefore, detaching from asaktam, as Bhagavan has said in the last verse, udasina asaktam, it's one way to just become aware of everything that we are reacting to, or reacting in the sense with raga, that is attachment, oh my antique, or with dvesha, oh I hate this or that person's behavior. Raga and dvesh are binding us to this prakriti, and therefore avashaha, without helping it, helplessly, avashaha, we are bound to return punaha. That's our destiny. That's ordained and designed by us. We are ordering. Chinmayaji used to say, you are ordering your own destiny, as if it was a menu card, and you said, I want such and such a family, or I want such and such thing in my life, and I want these pleasures or that pleasures of the material flesh, or I want those pleasures of divine understanding. Whatever the desires, we are ordering our next life as if on the menu card. And therefore, Maharishi Patanjali has also said that what is prarabdha? Prarabdha, which means what I am bound to go through in this life is ordered by me. It's the same menu card which I read in my last life, and I said, okay, Brahma, these are the things I love. Oh, my favorite dishes. So Bhagavan said, Tathastu. Next life, you are bound to those things, and also the bad actions. So Maharishi Patanjali said that all of us are bound by this prarabdha in three matters. That is, our ayu is fixed. So even if there was a plane crash and I had a longer ayu, I would survive. You know of such survivors in plane crashes. So ayu is fixed. Our jati is fixed. Now by jati he meant a big umbrella term meaning family. Now family means that all the Sanskriti, the culture, the education, the value systems that come from that jati or kul or family, that's fixed. And therefore we inherit a certain kind of inclination for materialistic passions or for or divine inclinations or just intellectual philosophical curiosity, wherever, whatever, that is our prarabdha. We are following that prarabdha because it's fixed. Jati, family, the ayu, and the bhog. Three things. Bhog means the experiences of good and bad. All the experiences of good and bad that we are going through right now and will go through till we pass away are fixed by prarabdha. Therefore, in India, many of us who believe in prarabdha, you will find them saying when they are actually down and out and things have gone horribly wrong for them according to their expectations and things look really bad and bleak for them, sometimes I've seen them just resign to it and say, it's okay, that was my prarabdha, let me move on. And they emotionally actually move on, just move on by saying this was my prarabdha. That means it was fixed, it was bound to happen. If not now, another time, that quota of that suffering was written out for me. Who wrote it? Of course we wrote it in previous lives. And therefore it's easier for them to move on, to drop it, to become asaktaha, udasina. And therefore Bhagavan is saying, if you believe in this knowledge, Arjun, you will also find it easy to know that it's not only Prakriti that you have to live in. You have to know that you are also consciousness, the real self. And that real self is the overseer of everything, the witness, the experience. And Prakriti, yes, Prakriti you know very well, it is binding you down to our Tamo Guna, Rajo Guna and Sattva Guna. Number 10th verse, we will read now. Mayadhyakshena prakritihi suyate sacharacharam hetunanena kaunteya jagadviparivartate. The world revolves because of the true nature of consciousness or the infinite. Now, Prakriti is within that. Prakriti is functioning within that. And our Prakriti is Tamoguna. Who are the tamasic people? The tamasic people are those who don't ever inquire or want to inquire what is the truth about life. Satya ki or kabhi पूछना ही नहीं है. Rajogun, they are acting, it's a great illusion in their mind. एक भ्रम है उनके लाइफ में कि मुझे इसी संसार में सब सुख मिल जाएंगे, तो मैं यहाँ से वहाँ दौड़ लूँ और सुख मिलते जाएंगे. ये रजोगुण का लक्षण है. और सत्वगुण, there is a great desire to find that ultimate light of satya. हम सब में तमोगुण है, रजोगुण है, सत्वगुण है, सभी में है, मात्रा अलग अलग है. There is a differing proportion, and all these guna are experienced only in the panchatattva, only in the body, mind and intellect. But body, mind and intellect is only prakriti. That means prakriti में जो सब कुछ असत है, तो मेरे गुण जो सत्व रजस तमस गुण है वो भी असत है. जी हाँ, वो भी असत है. लेकिन प्रॉब्लम ये है कि वो गुण की वजह से मैं वासना या डिजायर्स फॉर फ्यूचर कलेक्ट कर रहा हूँ. सत्व गुण यानी सात्विक डिजायर्स कलेक्ट कर रहा हूँ कि मुझे ये ध्यान और योग और ये प्रेरणा स्तोत्र और शास्त्र पढ़ना है. ये भी एक डिजायर है. हाँ, मैं सात्विक गुण भी कलेक्ट कर रहा हूँ और राजसिक भी और तामसिक भी. मात्रा अलग है, लेकिन अध्यक्षेण, ये वर्ड जो उन्होंने यूज किया, अध्यक्षेण, आई एम द ओवरसियर ऑफ एवरीथिंग, आई एम नॉट एक्टिंग. देयरफॉर कहा गया है कि दो दोस्त थे और दोनों, they had been walking for a great distance together on a very very long journey, and when they took a break and rested for a moment around a corner, one of them was totally devastated and dejected and said, I cannot go any further because this seems to be such a long journey. But the other one had walked an equally long journey and he was quite elated and quite dynamic and quite full of enthusiasm, motivation. Where did this enthusiasm come from? Well, the second friend, despite the long journey, same sansar, दोनों same संसार में हैं, he was elated because he had found the road map. He knew what the destination was. He knew that बस एक ये कॉर्नर में मुड़ जाऊं और इस कॉर्नर के बाद मेरा डेस्टिनेशन है, वो मुझे देख रहा है. और दूसरे ने वो डेस्टिनेशन देखा ही नहीं था, तो उसने सोचा कि बहुत 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 दूर जाना होगा, क्योंकि उसको ना तो रास्ते का पता है, पथ का, एंड ना तो उसको डेस्टिनेशन का पता है कि मुझे कहाँ तक जाना है. Therefore, Jesus of Nazareth had said, I am the path and I am the way. For those who have faith in me, I am the path and I am the way. Which means कि जो जान गए हैं कि अरे मुझे तो सिर्फ अपना परम तत्व पहचानना है, I have to just get beyond this प्रकृति, मैं इस प्रकृति में उलझूंगा ही नहीं. I know the path, ये है path. और मेरी डेस्टिनेशन क्या है वो भी मुझे क्रिस्टल क्लियर अगर पता चल गई शास्त्रों से, तब मैं थकूंगा नहीं, मुझे और मोटिवेशन, एंथुजियाज्म मिलेगा टू लिव इन दिस संसार विद डायनामिज्म एंड चीयरफुलनेस एंड लॉट ऑफ कंपैशन. पर जो दूसरा जो है वो हताश होता जाता है, क्योंकि उसको पता ही नहीं कि अरे ये मोड़ में मुड़ जाऊं तो भगवान ने कहा है कि मैं मिलूंगा, ये रास्ता है. So I am the path, I am the way. Jesus ने जब बोला था, it is for those people who have the faith in the scriptures and say कि हाँ मुझे रास्ता मालूम है, अब मुझे सिर्फ उस पर चलना है. And therefore, divinity brings a lot of dynamism in human lives. Knowing the rasta.